However, we tried, since 2006 we knew that there were some problems in the environmental assessment proposed legislation in which I was working with some other guys at Semarnet. So we said, okay, why don't we use creatively the environmental assessment tools that we already have in place, the environmental impact assessment. And we proposed 6 cases, which were it was amazing because we could actually propose 3 cases where we could simply apply the EIS guidelines and the law as it was, as it is. And then some others where we could be creative and establish some other with climate change scenarios included. The cases were comparable in the same region, under the same regulations, by the same authorities, affecting the same populations, and assessment was included a public consultation. The cases were 2 LNGs, one of Sempra and one of El Paso, in the very same region, 2 golf course, well, 2 huge tourism developments, one of Tiger Woods, one of Gary Player, just in the same area, and 2 mining projects with mixed capitals, all of these projects. And we used a social perception tool. This is the area of the Baja, where all the projects were evaluated, which, as you may imagine, it's a very, very busy place for developments and investment, pretty near the US, so you may imagine the funds. So I just got 2 cases, comparable cases. In case A, we have 412 participants, 99 observations, and well, throughout the scale, you know, guys from normativity, from the government, any household, everyone is a stakeholder for our purposes. The satisfaction indicators for us were in my arena, which is legal, how many litigation it was there. For this case, for the Sempra case, we had almost 40 appeals, habeas corpus, and annulment litigations. Is still being litigated. The LNG is there working, and we are still, well, they are still spending a lot of money, lots and lots of money. In the case B, we made an intervention process with 4 regional workshops, 555 participants, 2 official public meetings with 199 participants and 28 speakers, and we only got 2 appeals in the same region, the same year. So you can see the difference in the numbers. It's amazing. What did we find? We found that social participation had a limited administrative value. The environmental impact process did not allow the people to be effectively expressing their needs other than regarding environmental impact, specific in scientific language. And also, it is required. I've been hearing this for years. Yeah, let's use the scientific knowledge. Yes, but the law in a lot of these Latin American countries requires the legality rule. You can only use you can only impose the obligations based on scientific knowledge only where it's standardized in norms or in law. That's the rule of legality. So we have a gap there, and I will show you this. A narrow interpretation of the legality principle and no evaluation of the social requirements. This is what we call a vacatio ciencia, which means that if you see we have a norm scientific solution, which is obligatory for everyone to apply, and then we generate new knowledge in the blue line, but there's a gap between the moment of this new, the generation of this new knowledge and the moment where it's standardized, no? When it comes to substitute the past knowledge which was used. So this can, you know, this can happen for years. The norm, for example, for waste, it was a 1993 norm. because the normalization procedure is among guys that that have conflicting interests, it took us 12 years to change the norm. Therefore, we couldn't apply forcibly this norm to the guys that were generating waste, for example. So we decided to use this planification tool in order to determine where were we between stakeholders' concerns and project requirements, how far were we to get an agreement. We determined consensus, absence of information, or a dogmatic conflict in the red lines. No. We determined strategies, and we applied and tried to build consensus. And we came with something like this. After a one-day workshop, we determined 4 new criteria that had to do with climate change that were taken into consideration. D84, including implementation of the salt plant in case of lack of groundwater upon a 15-year study. Preparation of urban development plan to foresee human settlements in a 30-year span. Collaborative planning of use of coastal resources. Monitoring of seawalls. These were completely new, and it was because we called the people and asked them to tell us what they were wanting to see, and then we required the proponents of the projects to come with answers, and then we had to convince the authority to evaluate this and make a decision on this because they didn't want to. They said, no, I'm going to get into problems because, you know, I'm subject to whatever the law tells me to do in the government. No, I'm a public official. I cannot go beyond the law. So we convinced them that we were proposing this voluntarily, and then they were able to evaluate, and then we put this kind of climate change. You know, there were a lot of intelligent people helping these guys, these kind of rules. We did it 3 times. So it can be done. We expanded the principle of legality, actually, by doing this. And we established some rules of social participation, which are now being used by Semarnat, of inclusiveness, transparency, documentability, information, systematization. And we called the people to integrate the guideline. No? We're not only using the guidelines, but we are then modifying the guidelines now. So there's a committee made by the people, everyone is a stakeholder, that will determine which are the requirements that have to be met by the project, including climate change requirements. So the conclusions are, we don't have laws, but you know, we can still use some of our instruments. Society needs to perceive that CC actions will benefit them. You know, one interesting thing is when we couldn't approach the people, even though they knew that some criteria were established there towards climate change actions, they still wouldn't say yes. They would still oppose to any kind of project, even though it was sold this way. When we approached them and made them part of this, and it was transparent and documented, the things changed radically. We need to upgrade the guidelines with social input. We need to foster the use of new technology. And last, but not least, good practice governance is needed. You know, it was the most difficult part was not all the other thing. It was convince the guy in Mexico City to sit down and be able to analyze climate change kind of things. He didn't have the tools, but he agreed on allowing the proponents to develop the information so that this obligation would go would be established for decades to come and still be obligatory to the proponents, which was a big change. And I think that that's something that we have been doing these past years. We don't expect a lot of COP16. We're flying in 2 weeks there, but at least we're going to show some other exercises of creativeness in our arena. And I just want to quote this because I really believe in this. Legislation, no matter how good, cannot solve the problems by itself. But without a good legislation, no problem can be resolved. We need to work on legislation that would allow all that intelligence to have a goal. Thank you so much.